An amazing song, Riga. Love that song. Cool, really new, brand new. Guy proposed to his fiancée in the middle of a service. Absolutely interesting.
2 weeks ago.
Seems a Mavuno thing, because someone in Mavuno, Uganda did that just recently. But
that's interesting.
You're watching NTVUganda. We're having a fabulous time on the show, enjoying ourselves. And today we talk about sex. Yeah, sexual relations, especially in the Christian context. You know, a story is told of this village, yeah, where they would get out and celebrate every single evening. And you know what would happen is, you know, during their celebrations every single evening, a crocodile will get out of the water and, you know, bite a limb. Now this tourist had come into the village and was asking himself, why are there so many crippled people in this village? And you know, he sort of witnessed that, you know, party scenario and the crocodile, you know, snapping a limb off someone. And so he walked up to one person and asked, you know, why don't you do anything about this? I mean, you keep celebrating next to just right at the beach where this is going to get you. They're like, no, we do not talk about that. You know, it's not right to talk about. And that's what it feels like when, you know, with the church and sex. And so today on the show, what we're going to do is we're going to bust the can open and, you know, just talk about it. And I have someone absolutely experienced in the studio, Stephen Langa. You have been doing this for a really, really long time. I remember the first time I had you speak was in my S2 at Namagunga.
Oh.
Yeah, S2 Namagunga, True Love Waits What? He made us sign those,
you were there,
those yellow cards, yeah. Like, yeah, so that's the first time I had you speak. Okay. It's really nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself, you know, Stephen Langa. Who are you when you're not telling people about sex?
First of all, I'm a married man.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
And I have a ring.
You have something on your ring?
Yes. And I've been putting on this ring for the last 29 years.
Wow, that's I'm trying to do the math. 29 years. Okay.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
And we have 2 wonderful grown-up children.
Yeah.
Our daughter is already married. Yes. And our son, about a year ago, he felt, well, I'm old enough now to take care of myself.
So he left the house.
So he left the house. So we are back to
Is it lonely?
Well, it's like a honeymoon. It's like a honeymoon, yeah.
Okay.
And you see, that's why it's important to be friends as a couple.
Yeah.
Because there's a way in which children can keep a bad marriage going.
Yeah.
And then after the children leave, that's when you find, we thought these
like
people
we had nothing.
Yes, we had nothing. And if there's nothing, that's when people move apart.
Yeah.
But when you've been friends, and I was warned about that by the, while I was still dating. No. Before I started dating, a married man, when I was in university, told me, Stephen, I'm telling you, as a married man, build your friendship and your relationship with whoever you marry, because that will give you long mileage when you enter marriage. And I followed that, and I'm seeing what the benefit is, because now we are good friends. Imagine 2 lovers.
That should be exciting.
It is exciting.
You make some of us unmarried will be like, we want to get married now.
And that is good. In fact, if I can achieve that,
yeah,
I'm happy, because marriage is the best long-term thing for anybody and for society.
Okay, like I know we're not going to talk about marriage, but no, this is why you talking like that is exciting. A lot of the married people I talk to, you know, man, how is marriage? Man, marriage is hard. Wondering, so why would I be? A lot of young people don't want to get married because everyone is just telling them, man, take your time.
Absolutely.
Marriage is hard, man. It's one of those decisions.
Yeah.
But it's exciting to hear you talk about marriage like that. It's refreshing. So professionally, what do you do?
My background is I trained as an electrical engineer, and for many years I worked in industry. At one time I was the chief engineer of a big corporation in Kenya. But then after a while, I was called into ministry, especially to family and to morality. And so in 2002, we began Family Life Network, which is an organization that is working to bring, to restore families and morality. And so right now, I'm the executive director of that organization, and we do a lot of work with, we have a lot of programs for as young people as early as 10, right up to adulthood. We conduct parenting seminars, marriage seminars, and things like that.
Yeah.
We train people on courtship, how to court properly in a manner that you will get a good marriage.
Yeah.
And we talk about sexuality, which we are going to talk about today.
Yeah.
We teach value-based sex education, how you can actually keep yourself for your partner and give yourself as a great present to your husband or to your wife. And I tell you, there's nothing better than, there's no better present you can give to your spouse as yourself, you know, having kept your sexuality and all that. And if you've blown it, having repaired it and fixed it and got a secondary virginity, that's the greatest thing you can give to your partner.
Our generation sort of thinks virginity is overrated. That, you know, it's not really important.
Well, let me tell you,
Yeah.
it is important. And you know, I didn't tell you, but I'm a counselor as well. I counsel married people, I counsel young people.
Yeah. I
know a lot of people's sexual lives. And I'm telling you, it is worth. I'm yet to meet anybody who has, you know, been, you know, very promiscuous, and then, you know, change, who does not regret. Most people regret. Yes. I know that today there's this culture where, you know, try it out and what have you. But in the quiet moments, people do regret. Okay,
so we've already started talking about, so we might as well go on. What is the importance of waiting, keeping your virginity? I mean, why should someone wait? Right. Is there anything? Because a lot of times, you know, I mean, the pastor stands in the pulpit and says, you should wait because, I mean, you don't want to get pregnant, you don't want to get, you know, sexually transmitted diseases or demons, as they like to call them. And but see, a lot of people are having sex and they're not pregnant, you know, they're not getting STDs.
Yeah.
And so that really doesn't make sense to them. So why should I wait?
Okay, first of all, the biggest reason and the number one, even if there's no other reason, is that God says we should wait.
Yeah.
It's a command from God, and it's not a suggestion. It's a command from God. And God is our creator, and we are all accountable to him, whether we know it, whether we don't know it, whether we believe it or not. In fact, usually I feel like telling people about the origin of that. The origin of that law or that commandment was 3 months after the children of Israel had left Egypt.
Yeah.
They were now before Mount Sinai. And God ordered Moses to prepare the people to meet him in 3 days, personally. And when the D-Day came, the fire, you know, came on the mountain and what have you, and 3.5 million Jews stood there, and they heard the voice of God say, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." It was not something secret, it was something open. And Moses later tells us why God did that. He said that God did that so that people may know, people may fear him, and so that because of the fear of God, we will keep away from sin. So that's the biggest thing. Now, you need to know that sin is very, very serious before God. He takes sin very, very serious. First of all, we can see the consequences of sin, that death is there now.
Yes.
Death was not supposed to be there, but because of sin, death is there. We know that, you know, the world and this system was supposed to be, you know, last like forever. But because of sin, things are decaying. It has changed the whole universe because of sin. So because of that, because God has said it, that is the biggest reason. Now, when God says something and violates it, there will always be consequences, regardless of what we think, regardless of how we feel. One of the other consequences is that, you see, sex is supposed to connect the husband and the wife and make them one. And this is supposed to make you inseparable. Now, if you keep meet this one and then meet another one, I don't know that you've ever played when you're a kid with sellotape. You know, you put sellotape together, and then when you try to break it apart, initially it's very hard, very, very difficult. But when you keep doing that, you know, apart, you know, after several times, it can't stick. So one of the reasons why we should wait is that it will be able to stick better later on in marriage. Remember, as I told you at the beginning, that marriage is the best thing and is the best long-term thing for everyone and for society. It's the safest place to be in and for society. So if we start messing up here, and although it looks like there's no immediate consequence, we are blowing the biggest consequence. You know? So
sex, premarital sex, literally, you know, ruins your chances of longevity in marriage.
It spoils your chances.
Spoils your chances,
yeah. And by the way, there's even a research which came out recently. I think I saw it last year. And I remember my wife even gave a talk about it. the more promiscuous people have been, the less likely. In fact, you could see the correlation between a lot of promiscuity and divorce later in marriage. I mean, people have actually done studies on that. Now, for us in Uganda, we usually don't divorce, but what people do is, okay, yeah, just separate or leave this one and acquire another. Yeah. But actually, there is a correlation between promiscuity, especially if you don't do anything about it, if you don't come to your senses and put things right. Because fortunately, you know, as Christians, and we know that there is an opportunity for people to put things right. And when you put things right, which is what I call secondary virginity, then you can benefit from from getting into marriage with your sexuality repaired.
Let's talk about putting things right, because I have a feeling we'll forget to talk about it a bit later. So you talked about how premarital sex ruins your chances at longevity. Makes that cell tape not to stick.
Yes.
So how do you move? Because now I know that a couple of people might be watching the show who have been promiscuous, but they really want to have a lasting marriage. So how do you go about the process of healing that? Okay,
the first thing is you need to realize that what you've done is not right.
Yes.
Yeah, and because you need to understand that. And when you know that you've done what is not right, then the second thing is repent. Ask God to forgive you. Because the first person you offended is not the other person, but God. Yeah, because you violated what He has instituted. So you ask God for forgiveness. And the beauty and the wonderful thing is that the blood of Jesus, and we thank God for that, can cleanse us from all sin and from all guilt, which is so wonderful. And that's why. And by the way, it's the only way, it's the only thing that can cleanse you, you know. So after that, then get away or cut off links from things that have been leading you into sexual activity. In others, you need to produce fruit that is worthy of repentance. Matthew tells us that when you repent, you've got to produce the fruits worthy of repentance. In others, there is a kind of repentance you can do which is not worthy of repentance, and you know it doesn't count before God. So you've got now cut off links with the things that are leading you. Is it pornography? Is it a certain relationship? Is it a certain place? Or is it certain parties or whatever that lead you into that? Cut it off. Then thirdly, or is it fourthly? Forgive yourself. Because a lot of times we are hard on ourselves. Oh, why did I do it? I wish I could turn back at the clock. Forgive yourself. If God has already forgiven you, then for goodness sake, forgive yourself. Then, if you've done all that and you still feel that you need further help, then go for counseling. Yeah, be counseled, to be helped, you know, to completely get clean and start a fresh walk. And the beauty is, when you do that, you may not restore the original virginity, but you restore your purity. And you'll be pure, and you'll be as good as a virgin in your future relationships and in your future engagement.
Yeah. Well, you can feel free to call, to get in touch on Facebook, to get in touch on Twitter, and just ask. Today what we're trying to do is just, we all have questions about sex and sexual relations, and we're just going to try and talk about them in a more informed light. That's why you have Pastor Stephen Langa here, who is married, and is absolutely educated about these things, and will be able to help answer your questions. So feel free to get in touch on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is NTV_GXP. Get in touch on Facebook. Our Facebook address is NTVGXP. Just give us a call. Our phone numbers will be at the bottom of the screen shortly, and you can just feel free to just call us and ask those questions about sex. Just share a comment, and we'll be more than glad to hear from you. The other question I want to ask you, you talked about marriage and you know, you sex ruining. I mean, you premarital sex ruining your marriage. Right. But now there's a lot of literature about lack of sexual compatibility ruining marriages. I mean, you'll get there, you know, you and this person don't flow sexually. Right. I mean, you don't have a spark, and you know the chemistry is off and stuff like that, and therefore you have a horrible marriage. Is sexual compatibility a real thing?
I want to say, first of all, that there's a lot of lies out there. There are many books, and there's a lot of information that's being given which is actually not right, which is actually counterproductive to real good sexual life. Now, I want to say this. Sexual life, first of all, sex alone cannot keep a marriage or a relationship going. And again, research has been done about this. So just having great sex alone cannot keep a marriage. Good sex comes out of relationship. There are three kinds of relationship. There's the sexual attraction or sexual love, which is what most people know about. There is friendship love, where you're just good friends. You are close, you are, intimate and all that, just as friends, without sex even. Then there's unconditional love, where you accept the other person for who they are, with their strengths and with their faults. Now, in order to keep in a marriage, you need all the three. Now, if you have sex just because of the sexual attraction only, and you don't have friendship love, and you don't have unconditional love, that sex is going to be meaningless, and that sex is going to be mechanical, and that sex is not going to be fulfilling. And the Bible teaches us about somebody or people who had such a sex. There was this guy who really was married in love with his half-sister. Is it Amnon? Or yeah, Amnon, with his half-sister Tamar. He really brewed for this girl, and as we know, he tricked the situation and was able to sleep with her and had sex with her. Immediately he had sex with her, he hated her with a perfect hatred. That's exactly what happens when people just go into relationship just for the sex bit of it only. The sex bit of it, I say, is like an icing in the cake. You cannot eat that icing of the cake. It's so, sweet to the point that it's bitter. I mean, I can't take it. You need that plus the body of the cake. Then you can enjoy it. So, what makes good sex is the other two, the friendship bit and the unconditional.
So there's more to sexual compatibility than the sex.
Absolutely. And any two people can be sexually compatible. Because in any case, sex is something that is learned. Something that it's like a language. It's not a performance. You see, boxing, running, football is a performance thing, where you have to go and practice and then come and perform. That's not how sex is. Sex is a language. It's more like a language, like a piano, You go and first you see, ding, dong, and then you learn, and soon you perfect it and you are an expert. That's how sex is. In others, there's room for learning each other. Because this thing of thinking, oh, let me go and have a lot of sex here and then come and perform here, is actually counterproductive. Every sexual activity you have out there is going to be counterproductive when you come to your partner. And how is that? How does that work? This is how it works. And in fact, I'll steal for you, because as I told you, no, I didn't tell you, but we've worked with many couples. Yes. And I've worked with men who have been very promiscuous and then got married. For example, let me give this particular one. Very promiscuous. He married a virgin. The lady was a virgin. And he came. And for the first 7 months, they had problems. Because he was bringing experience from out there to him. She had none. Yeah. Now, not that she had none, but it was applying something different to something different. Because, yes, every human being responds differently sexually. Just like our fingertips are different. I mean our fingerprints are different. That's exactly how our sexuality is different. Every woman is different. Every man is different. And every woman needs to be discovered for who she is in her own right. And every man. And that's why you need to be the two of you to discover each other and then build it up and then build a great sex relationship together. If you bring experience from another woman to apply to this woman, it's going to backfire. And vice versa. It's going to backfire. And that's part of the reason why many people have a lot of problems today. It's not that they're sexually incompatible, but people are bringing wrong experience and applying it to the wrong person. And that's why you can see in God's wisdom when He wants us to actually keep this thing for the right person. Because He knows each one of us responds differently. And so you need the specific two of you to build your sexual life together.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That is interesting. Feel free to call us. Feel free to get in touch on Facebook, on Twitter if you have questions about sex, things you really wanted to ask. Don't be shy. If you don't feel like writing it on our timeline, you can inbox. We'll get that also. You can send us a DM on Twitter. You can inbox on Facebook. We'll be able to get that also. And you can also just give us a call. Our phone lines will be at the bottom of the screen in a bit. You can just give us a call, let us know what you think, your comment, your question. And I mean, we're going to be asking, I like calling him pastor. He says he's not a pastor. We're going to be asking Stephen Langa a lot of questions. And, you know, if you have some questions, feel free to ask. Twonjex, before the show began, you had some things to ask. I think I should give
I will ask later. Patience.
Well, let's get into some more music, and then Twonjex will come back and ask a couple of questions, because he had some questions of his own. And you're watching GXP. Feel free to get in touch on Facebook and on Twitter. Good morning. You're still watching NTV GXP, having a fabulous time on the show, enjoying ourselves, talking about something serious and exciting with Pastor Stephen Langa. Yeah, I should. I'll call you that. Like, I don't know. Stephen Langa,
please yourself. Yeah.
The head of the CEO, Family Life Network, executive director. Yes, that's because those terms mean completely different things. Right. But executive director of Family Life Network. I'm talking about, you know, sexual relations among us Christians. Thank you very much for everyone who's going in touch on Facebook. Bobby Fly, you say apparently a number of Christians today do not know God's stand on sex. It's like they don't have Hebrews 13:4 in their Bibles, or they ripped 1 Corinthians 6:9-18 out of their 9-18 out of their Bibles. I think churches should always throw more light on this subject, for some of the sheep have no idea at all. Do you think and do you think churches talk enough about sex and sexual relations?
They don't, but they should. Because you see, the Bible is God's counsel to us in all of life. And the Bible is the best sex education manual. So I feel that the churches actually need to do that. I remember a time many years ago, in the 90s, we did a marriage seminar, and we talked about sex. And the media picked it up. And I remember, you know, the monitor wrote and said that, oh, you know, sex taught in church, and it was a big thing. And I remember all that was brought down by one bishop, the late Bishop Gonahasa. He wrote back and said, look, you guys, wait a minute. Where is a better place to teach about sex than the church? Because God is the one who made this, and He's the one who has authority over this matter. So, all these things about sex being taught in church should cease, because it's the right place to teach about sex and every other thing in life. So, yeah.
Okay. Peter, you said temptations, they are awesome, but hey, how can I get rid of them? And I think it's just talking about, you know, those situations where you're in the thick of things. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Because a lot of times, again, I was reading earlier, and this pastor's wife was in retrospect. Yeah. She's talking about how she, you know, signed true love rates cards, and, you know, read Kiss Dating Goodbye and all the other Christian books. And she went to this camp where she was encouraged to write letters to her future husband and things like that. And she thought that she was going to make it, you know. I mean, if any Christian was going to make it to the journey of purity, she knew she was the one. But, you know, instead of asking, you know, why should she wait and blah, 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 and things like that, she kept asking, you know, how far is too far? You know, what if we slept in the same bed but still had our clothes on? You know, how much kissing is too much kissing? And people ask a lot of these questions. Right. So let's talk a bit about that. How far is too far? How much kissing is too much kissing? Should Christians kiss? There's a group on Facebook, to kiss or not to kiss. And it's a Christian group, and they discuss all these things. Right. But, you know, should Christians kiss? Especially if you're just dating.
I think people need to first of all understand the bigger picture about relationship and about sex.
Yeah.
God designed relationships in such a way that they should naturally lead eventually to sex. That's how the natural progression of relationships. And that's why before you start relating, before you start even engaging, before you start even, you need to think ahead, and you need to be wise about where you're going. You know, the other day I was just studying about my the camera I have, and in determining the kind of picture you want, they say you first of all need to know what you're going to do with this picture in order to know what setting you need to put it. So people also need to know, why am I getting into this? And the only reason you should, not the only reason, but if you are into a relationship or into a situation which is not going to lead to you being able to enjoy sex legitimately, you are wasting your time. You are going to get into emotional problems, and so you're going to actually go into a heartbreak and so many other consequences if that is not going to be the case. So before you talk about should I go too far or not go too far, don't just talk about that's a very shallow way of looking at this sort of thing. This is too big to be looked at in that context. You need to look at the bigger picture, the bigger end. Where is this thing going to end? Where do I want to end with this thing? And the only way you should start off on the road into relationship is if at the end this thing is going to end in marriage. I'm heading in the direction of marriage. I'm heading for marriage. There, fine, begin this journey. But beginning the journey with this thing undefined, you're going to have big problems. So, the question I ask...
Let me interrupt you. Again, a lot of church people, and I've talked to a lot of church people, say, okay, yeah, I'm dating for marriage. But I've already made up my mind on this woman.
Yeah.
You know, I want to marry her.
Yes.
What is wrong with starting
Now.
Yeah. Now, you need to be... You see, that person is not your wife. That person is not your husband.
Yeah.
Until you are declared husband and wife. And mark you, anything can go wrong. And not every relationship that starts...
That has the intention of
yeah,
marriage.
that is
marriage.
Exactly. Because courtship is a period when you're supposed to check how compatible are we. Well, do we have enough common things to keep this relationship and marriage going throughout life? That's what you should be focusing on, rather than being busy having sex. Because you see, or doing some of those very deep things. Because sex, premarital sex, has the capacity to keep a bad relationship going and has the capacity to kill or to damage a good relationship. So, do first things first. There is time for everything. You are going to have all the time on earth to have the sex. The time will come. And in fact, somebody said that somebody who has premarital sex or does a lot of this is somebody who is stealing from himself. The thing is already going to be yours, or it's already yours, but you are stealing it. It's pointless. So the question that people should ask is not how close should I be, but actually how I need to avoid this thing. Because, you know, it is like butter and fire. If you know that there's a fire there and you have butter, the question would be how close can I go to the fire?
Before the butter melts.
Before the butter melts, yeah. Because it will melt. Because people need to know this, and maybe this will help answer that question. In our normal settings, or usually as people, we have our instincts are in this order. The first one, self-preservation. Second, our will. And third is our sexual influence or whatever. Now, if you are foolish enough and you get yourself sexually aroused, you get to a point where number 3 comes to number 2. You know,
your will.
Yes, your will, exactly. Your will is suppressed, such that you don't want to do it, but you've been foolish enough to get yourself so worked up, you're going to do it. And so, the wise person knows,
it's always safe to keep will above.
Absolutely. That's why Joseph ran away from Potiphar's wife. When the lady began to, you know, talk so close and all that, Joseph knew what I'm talking about, and he ran away. And there was a wise guy.
Let's just talk about that hierarchy again, because it's I've never heard it before, and it's interesting.
The first is self-preservation. If a lion came here, we would jump without thinking, automatically. Or a snake, we would just jump. Yeah, that's the first one. The second one is the will. I can choose to stand here. I can choose to walk, get up now, and work. That's the second. Then the third is our sexual instinct. Yeah, when we are in this kind of situation, it is the third. Our will can tell it keep quiet, and it will keep quiet or whatever. And that's okay. Yeah. But if you get it worked up, you get it aroused, it reaches a critical point when it overtakes your will. Yes, it overtakes your will. And at that time, you realize you are doing something wrong. It's going to happen. You didn't want this to go on, but it's going to happen anyway. Because you are foolish enough to awake. That's what the Bible teaches in Ecclesiastes, that love is as strong as death. In other words, and that don't wake up love prematurely. What that means is that sex or the love emotion is like a lion. Don't open that cage until you are ready for that.
The consequences.
Yes, for the consequences. You shouldn't. So keep that thing locked until the consequences are ready, where even if it is open, we are prepared for the consequences. So love is a very, very powerful thing, and that's why it needs to be kept until the right time. So that is the situation, and that's what happens if we are foolish enough. We get ourselves worked up, and it will happen. It will happen. So so see ahead. See ahead. There's a verse that says that a wise person sees calamity coming from ahead and ducks and saves himself. But a foolish person goes on. He knows calamity is there, but just goes on and is destroyed. That's what the Bible says. And again, Thessalonians, it tells us that avoid every appearance of evil. Meaning that if in this call that I'm going to take, this SMS that I'm sending, there can be, at the end of the day, there may be sin, or this visit I'm going, or this party that I'm going to. If there's a possibility that there could be sin at the end of this thing, you better duck. That is a wise person. But the foolish go, let me go and see what could happen. Let me, how close can I get? Man, that is very foolish.
I mean, Twonjex kept sighing. It seemed like he had a couple of things to say, so I'll stop talking and let him talk for a bit.
No, my question was, because I was talking about one thing with a friend of mine about the fact that we're going to have this topic on the show, and then the person asked, is it actually, because there's this stigma that comes out that talking about sex makes you want to have sex. So is it true that talking about sex makes you want to have sex?
Oh, I need to ask, like, on top of that, because a lot of people, they tell you if you're relating to someone, you should be open to them about sex and things like that. I think in the same breath, you can talk about, how to have that. You're dating someone. Okay. How do you have that very tricky conversation about,
Let me begin with this. Twonjex, that, when you are talking about it, it makes you. It depends on the context. Depends on the context. There is a context when it is not right to talk about sex. If it is being talked about in a promiscuous manner, and all that, it's wrong. However, if you are talking about it, for example, teaching someone, the kind of talk we're having now, this is okay, because we're here trying to teach people and to make them, it is okay. So it depends on the context. Now, coming to how you teach a child or talk about this with children. First of all, you, the mature person, needs to have the right attitude towards sex yourself, first of all. And the right attitude towards sex begins with discovering or knowing who we are. That thing is so critical to us handling our sexuality properly. I usually use my mobile phone. I bring it out and I say, if I don't know that this phone is a mobile phone, I'm going to abuse it, whether I like it or not. Because I might think, oh, maybe it is a hammer, and I use it as a hammer, which is completely wrong. In the same way, we need to know and to come to the right identity of who we are. If we don't know who we are going to abuse ourselves, we are going to abuse our sexuality. Now, who we are is we are made in the image of God. We are human beings made in the image of God, not animals. Because we are made in the image of God, we have the capacity to make moral choices and stick with them. Because we are made in the image of God. Because God is a moral God, and He has given us the capacity to be moral. The problem is many of us have taken on animal sexuality as opposed to human sexuality.
That's what the world says. I mean, it's
an
urge. Go
exactly. It's wrong. It's wrong. They've made us animals rather than human beings who have the capacity to say yes and the capacity to say no. A dog doesn't have that capacity. A goat doesn't have that capacity. It just acts by when it is on heat, it's time to breathe, they just go ahead. And that's why we human beings, we are the only creatures that can reproduce throughout the year. Because we have the capacity to say yes and the other. So that is the first thing people need to understand. Otherwise, if you don't understand, you are going to abuse your sexuality. You're just going to think, oh, we are just animals anyway. The urge is there, so what can I do? You are not that. And don't reduce your sexuality to animal sexuality. Now, having known that, the second thing is to understand that sex is a beautiful, holy, good and wonderful present, a blessing that God has given to us. And because it's a beautiful present, precious present given to us from God, we need to treat it as such. I tell people, what is the climax of creation? And the climax of creation is a human being. And you see how God, in his wisdom, has made that through sexual activity, his greatest creature or creation can be brought up, or can be. Because somebody being born is a cooperation between God and us, the human being. We do the natural, and God does the supernatural. Because every human being has to have a spirit. We're not like dogs, you know, has to have God's spirit. Now, that activity or that whole thing involves God, and God has made that happen through this thing called sex. And so it is a big thing, it's not a small thing. Now, having known that, or having said that, that foundation, as a parent, you are supposed to, the relationship between you and your spouse is the first sex education lesson that your child has, to see how you two conduct yourselves. Is the first sex education of the child. Then after that, you need to answer the child's questions with age-appropriate answers.
Let's talk a bit about that.
Okay.
Age-appropriate, because
yes.
a lot of
and right, not wrong. Yeah.
Because a lot of times parents don't know. I mean, little girl comes and asks you, "Daddy, Daddy," you know, she's probably second born. The mother is pregnant with another on the way. Yeah. Asking, you know, why is mommy's stomach big?
Exactly. What has she eaten?
What has she eaten?
Yeah.
And then guy goes and says something like a football, or So how do you? Are those opportunities for you to start to explain to your child about sex, even if they're 5 years old?
Absolutely. And sexuality, not necessarily sex, but sexuality.
I hope you're hearing this. You have a little girl.
Yeah, about sexuality, because sexuality is more than just sex. It includes sex, but it's bigger. Sexuality is everything about you being a boy or a girl.
Let's just put a pin in it there. We're going to come back and talk about how to talk to your children, to your siblings about sex. Twonjex is going to be taking notes because he has a little girl who's going to be asking him some tough questions in a couple of years. And we'll be back just after this. You're watching GXP. Good morning. You're still watching NTV GXP. We're having a fabulous time having off-camera conversations with Stephen Langa, which are just as exciting as the ones we're having on camera. And before we went on the break, we were trying to help Twonjex learn how to talk about sex with his little daughter, who is going to be asking complicated questions in just a bit. So you were talking about age-appropriate messages.
Right.
Yeah. How do you...
You see, when a child is growing, they are discovering about their world. They are trying to see what is what and who is who and what's going on here. And very soon they will notice, mommy and daddy maybe sleep in the same bed. Me and my brother, we don't, or my sister, we don't. Wow, how come? There, you need to tell the child. And that's by the sex education. Because daddy and mommy are married. And when you are married, you sleep in the same bed. Even you, when you will grow up, you will get married, and you will be able to sleep in the same bed. Now, where do children come from? Initially, the children, all they want to know is where do they come from? And an answer like, they come from mommy's tummy, is enough at that time. And they go on playing. Oh, the children come from mommy's tummy, and they go on playing. At that time, they've not grown up enough to wonder, how does that kid get in there, and how does the kid come out? They're not there yet.
They're not bothered.
They're not bothered. Other, where is it from? Because, from there, oh, fine. And they go and play. And for 2 or 3 months, they will play. And then they come, oh, but, how does it come out? How, or they notice the mother is now expecting another child. What is all this? You need to say, oh, that's the baby. That's your brother or sister coming, and all that. And at that time, they are not worried about how will it come out until later. Yeah, so then when it comes for coming out, where does, then you just say, oh, there's a passage that God has made where children come out. And at that time, oh, they go and play, no big deal. So the idea is to give age-appropriate, factual not lies.
Yes.
Not, oh, we buy children from
The supermarket.
Yeah, from the supermarket. That is wrong. That is wrong. Because later when the child will discover the truth, they'll find out that you've been lying and they'll start mistrusting you. So give age appropriate. And there's nothing awkward, by the way, about it. It's just our culture and our own mindset which has painted sex from a dirty point of view. That, oh, sex is bad manners and that kind of stuff, which is the problem. We are the people who have the problem, not the children. Children have no problem. You are the one who taught them how to go to the toilet, you're the one who taught them how to eat, with, you know, what have you. So they expect you to be the one to teach them. So the parents are the best teachers of sex education to their children. We did that to our own children. They are now grown up. And we had a time when we had to demystify this whole thing of sex. There's a time when children go through a phase of discovering their genitals and, you know, and they touch them.
And they realize the girl is different from the boy.
Exactly. And that's the time to show that there's a God made. And you see, you must put God in the picture.
Yeah.
Yes, that this is how God made us. Again, you need to bring sex in the context of God. It's a gift from God to us and to married people, you know. And as a parent, you must connect these two things together as early as possible. Sex and marriage must be connected in a child's psyche. Whenever they think about marriage, there is sex. You know, whenever they think about sex, they must think marriage. Long before the hormones kick in and begin to, you know, confuse. The child must be found with firm values, fixed in firm values. Then that way, they can handle any hormone that comes up. But if they are not fixed on those firm values, the minute the hormones come in, things are going to go haywire. Yeah, because there's nothing firm to guide them, you know, in this roller coaster that comes in. So those are principles that are best to be fixed with age-appropriate information.
Yeah, the guy with the daughter wants to ask.
There are two parts of my question.
Yeah.
The first one is when do I actually demystify the whole thing about sex? And then the second one is, I am a father. Am I the one who's supposed to tell my daughter, or I should pass on all the questions to my wife and she talks about all of that? Okay.
Now, when to demystify, that one comes with teachable moments. You should never lecture. You know, okay, children, come now, it's lecture time.
The birds and the bees.
Yeah. Lectures don't work with children.
Yeah.
You take advantage of teachable moments. Yeah, teachable moments. Teachable moment means either from a question or from an observation. Yeah. Or a circumstance, a real life circumstance. Maybe you are watching TV or something, and then, you know, people are kissing and all that. That is,
and it gets uncomfortably awkward when your parents are in the room and then a kissing
scene
comes.
Exactly. That is a moment to teach children about that.
Yes. I never thought about it like that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You use real life situations. You know, you have a cousin who has a child out of wedlock. It's a time to teach sex education. Because they will, for example, they'll discover, but you know, you told us that, you know,
it's about for marriage.
Yeah, but you see, uncle so and so, or so and so, then we tell that, you see, there are some people who disobey what God has said, and this is what happens. Yeah, so that the child has to know that. Then, what was the second question?
The one about
it should be done. There are things which should be done jointly. We did ours jointly with my wife. We called, you know, our children together. There was something that they were going through, and we initiated the first thing together. That is over and above the teachable moments, which either parent can do, whoever is with them. But there's time that you can do things together. I mean, I talked to my daughter about many things, and when she became a teenager, there are many things that we did, and daddies need to really be close to their daughter, to their daughters. For example, when we reach the time of you know, boys that begin to get interested in girls and so on, and they begin to write cheats, my daughter would bring to me, "Daddy, look at what this boy is saying," and I say, "Oh, so we do it together," and then we plan the response together.
Now I want to ask you some very tricky situations, because a lot of times, like for a lot of Christian parents, again, you know, when their daughters start to get the attraction and they, you know, they like this boy and stuff like that, you know, sort of, but you know, you wait. you know, like, and I know it's not about sex, but you know, it
Ties
how,
in.
how do you deal? Because now I mean you are lucky enough for your daughter to show you the notes and the letters and things like that. You know, where the kind of dad told her, you know, just leave that boy. See, wait till you're 24, and then you know, how do you handle?
First of all, you need to understand that this child is going through puberty and hormones have kicked in. And rather than just make those, you know, don't do this, don't do the other, you need to help walk with the child through that. Let me give you an example of a parent. You know, we do teach parenting. And one parent told us recently that her 9-year-old girl said she wanted to have a boyfriend. I said, oh, so rather than, you girl, you're now going to get spoiled, she was, oh, I see. Good, let's talk about it. Now, she told us that she had learned in the class that ideas have consequences. You know, we teach that. And so they began to discuss it. They began to analyze it. So you know, let's see, oh, so if I have a boyfriend, you know, what would that mean? You know, this and the other. And, you know, discussing, conversing. At the end of the day, the guy said, mommy, no, I think, let me wait. No, I think I'm not. That's how you parent your child, She has that thought, but then because you're wiser, you are older, you are more experienced, you help guide the child, not through, you know, whatever, but help her from her understanding to guide her, just guide her thinking until you help her arrive at the right information. Yes. That's it.
I have another question.
Yes, and feel free to call us. Twonjex is going. Feel free to call us and let us know your thoughts or your questions or your comments on Ish. If you have questions about sex, if you have a comment on one of the things that we're saying, our phone number is on your screen. So just feel free to give us a call and let us know, you know, what you think. Or feel free to get in touch on Facebook and on Twitter. Our Facebook address is NTVGXP. Our Twitter handle is NTV_GXP. No,
I'm having this question. I'm having this conversation on Twitter with this person, and the person is insisting that the whole idea about experience is you must be experienced. Like you train a horse to go to the well, you must be experienced, sexually experienced and things like that. Is that true?
Okay. Sex is one of those things where you are better off entering marriage with as little experience as possible, but with as much information as possible. You see, we prepare people for marriage. And when we prepare people for marriage, we take them through the whole bedroom issue. And when we take them through the bedroom issue, we help them know how to handle the bedroom issue. We give them information. There's a lot of good information, not fake information, because out there there's a lot of fake information, which is sex out of context. Now, there's a big difference between the sex out of context and the right kind of sex. So we will give people the proper information of how they can, the basics that they can begin with in order to develop and perfect their sexual lives. But it is not true that you need experience.
We have a couple of callers on the line. Hello? Hello?
Hello, this is Peter Mungoya Moses.
Yes, Peter.
Now, in fact, that's challenging to some of us Nigerians.
Yes.
Somewhere, somehow, in reproductive health, we are supposed to make these children prevent and STDs. But primary child, sometimes it's not, it's hard. It's not good to talk about condom use, what, but they instruct us to talk about such things. So, what's the take on that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
You know, we have another caller. Hello? Seem to have.
Hello.
Hello, your name and where you're calling from?
This is Ben from Nakuru.
Yes.
For me, I just want to appreciate your program. I really like it a lot.
Pardon?
I want to appreciate your program.
Well, thank you.
It's really amazing. I mean, it has touched me personally.
Well, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thanks for the love.
Okay, have a beautiful Sunday. GXP, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you? Who are we talking to?
This is Amoding Kevin.
Yes, I'm Oding. Where are you calling from? Okay, how is Chitetika this morning?
It's fine.
Your question or comments?
When I was asking, is it possible to meet that gentleman in person?
Ah, well, I think we'll be giving a couple of details on how people can get in touch with Stephen Langa towards the end of the show. Hello?
Hello?
Your name and where you're calling from?
Kelvin from Busia.
Ah, what do you take, Calvin?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Your question or comments? Ndio Blai. Ah, Bolo.
Anyway, my issue is about
Yes.
if they could faster take this down.
Yeah. Hello?
If faster could take it down to family and encourage the parents to talk about sex,
Mm.
then it will solve that university thing that is going on.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the first time I then neglect to the fact that sex is an issue and they don't talk about it.
Mm.
So if they could address it properly and encourage also the parents in charge and talk about it to their children, with that problem won't happen again.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're having a lot of callers. We just take as many as we can. Hello?
Yes,
Your name and where you're calling from?
my name is Lydia.
Yes, Lydia.
Yes, from Bali.
How's in Bali this morning?
I want to thank you for the program.
Well, thank you for watching.
Yeah, and
Hello?
yes, and I want to say that it is a great topic to talk about.
Mm.
And I would like to, first of all, get in touch with that man in person.
Okay.
Yes, it is a good topic for us as parents, because I'm a parent personally.
Yes.
And I always fear, even when my children see people keeping on TV.
Mm.
So it is a thing that I really want to know more about.
Okay. We'll be giving you details on how you can get in touch with Stephen in just a bit. So I think let's just take a couple of calls, then we'll do that. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Bali. How are you?
I'm good. Who are we talking to?
Joseph from Bali.
Yes, Joseph.
Yeah.
Your question or comment?
My question pastor. My question pastor is.
Yes.
How do I get confidence from my partner when she feels like I've been off?
I beg your pardon? I wouldn't seem to get that one clearly. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Jamaica. My name is Stella.
Yes, Stella.
I've listened to Mr. Stephen Langa a few times and also met him personally during the seminar.
Yes.
And I would like to thank him and his team very much, including his wife, for the big differences in the lives of many people in this country, and especially having the courage to say the right things and to talk about the hard topics. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's just take one more caller. Hello?
Hello.
Your name and where you're calling from? Hello? Hello?
Hello, this is Stella.
Yes, Stella.
I would like to ask a question. My 9-year-old. Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yes. I found my 9-year-old masturbating, and I didn't know what to do about it. And when I tried to talk to her, she said she liked it. And yes, so I'm wondering what to do. Do I talk to her?
Ah, okay. Well, how do people find you? Let's get that out of the way, because we have a lot of, like, how do people,
Okay.
because we might forget, and
Yeah.
how do people find you? Let's get that out of the way, because we have a lot of, like, how do people,
Okay.
because we might forget, and
Yeah. Okay, I can give my telephone number and email address.
yeah.
Yeah. My telephone number is 0772 476 071. Let me say that again. 0772 476 071. And my email is simple, stephenlanga@gmail.com. Now, Stephen is STEPHENLANGA. stephenlanga@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can.
Yes, I think let me begin with the Stella, with the 9-year-old. Found her the child masturbating. Usually, if it was a bit younger, would have been innocent, because children are just trying to discover their body, and they find that it's pleasurable, touching our private parts. But if it is 9, I think she knows what she's doing, and I would suggest that she should seek help. She should seek, a counselor to talk to that girl. Yeah, because something must be fueling that behavior. She must have seen something. She may have been exposed to things. It's necessary for a counselor to help her. That's what I would suggest. Yeah. Then there are several people who are thanking me. Well, I want to say thank you very much. I mean, I appreciate your compliments. Just keep praying for us, because the work is a lot, as you can see.
Yeah.
Then there's the one about they're taught to. This is Mugoya.
The teacher.
Yeah, the teacher. Yes, they're being told to tell children to use condoms and so on, and it is awkward and all that kind of stuff. I would say that it is really unfortunate that you are being asked to do that, because to some of the children, those things don't make much sense. And teaching about sexuality from the point of view whether should you do it, should you not do it, should you use a condom, should you not use a condom, is very shallow and does not help. People need to see this thing from a bigger context, the way we are trying to bring it here. That's when people can actually behave. So, this Muga, I just would say that if you've got some information from what we've given in this talk here tonight, you use that information to help the children rather than teach what you know doesn't work and is not helpful. First of all, with a child, a 12-year-old, you want them to use a condom. First of all, the condom sizes are even,
they don't work.
Yes, they don't work. So really, I mean, it's really unfortunate that that is happening. Children, by the way, let me say this on media. Children don't have the capacity to handle sexual emotions. Sex was designed for adults. It's an adult who has enough emotional capacity to handle sexual activity. When you begin to get children to be engaged in it and so on, it's like putting 10 tons on a 1-ton pickup. They can't handle it. They can't handle it. Children don't have the capacity to handle sexual. So what the children need is a message of abstinence. That's what they want. And all they need is to be shown how to abstain, how to handle those feelings, how to handle the drive when it comes. And they're handleable. There is what they call self-control. It's possible to control anything. And people just need to be given those skills. Then there was somebody, yes, who said a very good thing, that if only pastors could preach about this thing on the pulpit and encourage parents to teach their children about sexuality, we would not have this problem. I totally agree with that. And that's why we teach parents to teach their own children. And when they do that, man, it is so wonderful, because first of all, the children trust you so much. The children, we told our children, when we demystified this whole thing, we told them, our children, whatever question you have on sex and sexuality, we promise to answer it. And I put out my hand, and I told my son, put your hands, and they put their hands, little hands there. And I told my wife, We all put our hands together. We agreed. This is a deal. Whatever question you will have, we will answer. And boy, we were asked many questions. Yes. And we answered them. Yes.
You didn't know they had those many questions. Okay, that's coming from my child. Yeah, so it's exciting. Feel free to keep getting in touch with us on Facebook, on Twitter. We'll try and answer as many questions. Now, someone said, and we we're talking during the break, and someone walked into the studio and was talking about how women are being told that, you know, men are physical, so men fall in love after they sleep with you and things like that, and the other way around. You know, can you talk a bit about that?
I would say that that is a lie. You don't need sex in order to have love. And love is not equal to sex.
Yes.
Those two things are different. You can have a lot of sex with no love. And that love is very, very important in relationships. As I mentioned earlier, I think at the beginning, if a man has sex with a woman and is purely because of the attraction, that is actually lust. If it is just out of lust, they are going to hate that woman. There is this false feeling, and I see a lot of young people think about it, that, oh, when we have sex, then it will keep our relationship together. It doesn't work that way. Sex has the this false feeling to make you think that you are close when actually you are not close. And that's why people have been sleeping around. They sleep around, then later they get married. And then they discover, oh my God, I married the wrong man. I married the wrong woman. It's because they were foolish enough to be busy with sex rather than discovering each other and whether they are compatible. And now they're in there locked into marriage and they realize, oh my God, I don't know this man, I don't know this woman. Because what makes a marriage work is when the expected and the reality are as close as possible. So that pretty much when you get in there, what comes out is what you expected. That one would be a good relationship. But what ends up happening is the expected is here, the reality is here, and there's a big gap. It brings a lot of frustration and discouragement. So courtship is a time to reduce this. Know the other person as much as possible. Of course, you cannot say 100%, but pretty much enough to, you know, to stick out your neck to be with this person.
To make a calculated decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Then, and I talk about this with
no, I think I need to answer, yeah. So what builds love is actually communication. Yeah. Communication is what builds love.
You know, I think we need to do an entire show on how to communicate.
That's right.
Because that is, I mean, because this is one of the, because what we keep telling married relationships, communicate. And yeah, we know it's communication. How do we communicate?
I think we need to do that because it is so important in marriage, it's so important in parenting. If you don't know how to communicate with your child or with your spouse, you are finished. And even success in life, I mean, they found out that all our academic qualifications only contributes 15% of our success in life. The 85% is who we are and how we interact, our interpersonal relationship. And in that, communication is the big factor.
I think we need to sit down one of these and talk about that.
Right.
But I'd like to talk about abuse, which is a sad thing. But we have a culture where, you know, uncles are sleeping with little girls and telling them, you know, don't tell your, and I mean, our culture is notorious for that, which is a sad thing. But, you know, there are people out there who have been abused and they look at sex as a horrible thing, and it's a bad thing. And so they're probably either sleeping around because, you know, for them sex is just, you know, or they absolutely hate it and they don't want to get married because, you know, all these things. I'd just like you to just take a couple minutes and talk to someone like that.
First of all, I want to say that if anybody is abused out there, we are really sorry. I mean, it is unfortunate that it has happened. But what you can do is you need to get healed from the emotional effects of that abuse. The way to go about it is, first of all, to accept that you are affected negatively by that abuse. A lot of us, don't admit that, and we live in denial. We just put it at the back of our minds and we don't even want to think about it, we don't want to imagine it. And that's not right, and it's not good, because what you hide in the subconscious is going to come out in another way you didn't expect. It may make you hate marriage, it may make you hate men or women, for that matter, depending on whether it's a boy or and all that. Yeah, it may make you hate, this institution. So you need to admit that yes, the thing affected you. Then secondly, you need to forgive the person who did, or the people who abused you. And that one is for your own good. I know you can say, oh, I can't forgive, oh, I can't forgive. Yes, I know it was terrible, but please, for your own sake, forgive. Because if you don't forgive that person, the thing will continue haunting you, and the damage will continue taking place. If you don't forgive, you're like somebody who is in prison, and you're the one with the key, and you are not opening. So the forgiveness is the key that is going to get you out of that prison. Thirdly, after you're forgiven, ask God to heal the negative effects of that abuse. The attitudes he has been putting in you or whatever, ask God to remove it. And then fourthly, if necessary, if you've done all that and you still feel you need further help, then see a counselor. See a good counselor who can help you. Counseling is okay. It's biblical. When the Bible says confess your sins one to another, that is counseling. Some of it is counseling. It is okay. It's normal. And all of us need counsel in one way, at one time or another. The Bible says in Proverbs that where there's a multitude of counseling, there is safety. So go for it.
Okay. And we have to wrap this up. Just before we do, is there anything that is on your heart as regards to sex that you'd like to share before we close?
What I want to say really is to tell young people out there that young people, you want to have great sex, please preserve it and keep it for your husband and for your wife. Don't buy into what the media is saying. Don't buy into what people are saying. Don't buy into whatever is saying.
Really quickly, you've reminded me of something that I wanted to ask, and if you can answer it in like 2 minutes, that would be great.
1 minute.
I was sitting with friends the other day, and these friends seriously bought into the notion that pornography helps your sex life, that by knowing, understanding how things work, what experience, technique, and that it helps your sex life. Can you just talk about that in just a bit before?
But pornography does not help in our sexual life. In fact, it's counterproductive. Pornography is actually sex miseducation. Not sex education, but sex miseducation. And I've known, let me give that through this live example. Somebody sent me a text a few years ago. He said, I'm about 40, I just got married recently. I kept myself as a virgin, but the bedroom things have refused. So I engaged him and I inquired, were you taught about, was this discussed with you during preparation? And nobody discussed with him at all sexuality. So I asked him, where did you get the information that you used in sex? He said, pornography. Here he was applying pornography and it was backfiring. I had to undo that and taught him the right thing. I gave access to the proper information, proper materials, and that's what rectified his sex life. So pornography is terrible. A friend of mine who was taught by BBC to make movies told me, Stephen, I pity young people who look at pornography and or bedroom scenes in movies and think that is life, real life. He said that is not real. He said when they're making those movies, the director can shout at you, put your leg like this, do like this and do the other. So it's not real. And here's a poor young person thinking, oh, that's real. Let me go and try it out. It doesn't work.
I read someone I had someone who was writing that sex isn't as glamorous as you see in the movies. The light isn't shining. As always. But we have to close. Thank you very, very much, Stephen, for coming through. Hopefully we'll get another chance to just sit down and talk about a whole host of things.
You're welcome.
And if I know everyone learned their lessons today, but for me, the unmarried man, sex and exclusivity. And someone once told me that, if you want, I think I was listening to a podcast or something, Gail was saying, you know, sex and romance, if you have exclusivity, if you're with one person, you know, you'll figure it out. If you're exclusive to one person,
Absolutely.
it will become beautiful
Absolutely.
in its own time. And that's what I want you to remember.
And
I mean,
research says, I mean, this research done by non-Christians, the people who enjoy sex best are people in monogamous relationships. And those in the monogamous, there's a group that is highest. They call them conservative Protestants, and those are actually the born again, because they didn't even know the terms. Conservative, we are at the top, not the pornographers.
well, have a really good Sunday. If you want to have great sex when you get married,
right,
you can quote Stephen Langa on this.
Absolutely.
Be exclusive. Keep yourself for that person. Abstain if you're not married yet. Please feel free to seek help if you're in a situation where you have been addicted to pornography or where you've been having sex. Stephen Langa has given his contacts. You can email him at stephenlanga@gmail.com and be able to answer a lot of your questions. Thank you so much for being part of the show from everyone behind the scenes. Goodbye. Have a very good Sunday.